Hi, Johnson. How's it going?
It's good here. Well, it's nice and sunny. It has been recently. It's very warm and things are great. What's it
So,
like in your part of the world?
yeah, it's been very sunny this weekend. As you can probably try, my face is a bit, red at the moment. We had two amazing hiking days. We did almost, I don't know, probably 30 kilometers between
Wow.
yesterday and today.
Wow.
And it was absolutely fantastic. The weather is really good. I'm telling you. I,
Wow.
I almost missed the recording today, man. I said, should I show up for the recording?
Well,
The weather is so nice out there. I'm telling you.
I tell you what, I'm glad I'm not talking to myself.
No, that's good. That's good. No, I think it's great. And I'm really excited about some of the material that you sent across this week and some of the stuff that I've been digging. I think this topic is huge, absolutely huge, resilience and communities. And I would like to have some good amount of time to explore that with you. And in today's world, more than ever, it's important for us to understand how you build resilience in community, in life, part of a community, but also how you build resilient communities,
Correct.
which is another thing.
Yep.
So that's important. Let's see how far we can go today. We can always divide in two parts, but I would like to allow some time for us to go through everything that we have planned, and it's very exciting. But I just want to talk to those people watching or listening to us today. We have a whole series on resilience. Please go to YouTube or to any of the podcast providers that we are now have a podcast, and you can just listen to the previous episodes, and then you understand a little bit of where we're coming from with resilience. And I think our community MLC is centered around the resilience. Correct?
Definitely. I mean, just to point out again, as we're saying, so one of the things like this week we'll be talking about is the idea that somewhere along the line we started with, I think one of the earlier episodes was in and around nutrition, and so this week we're going to re-emphasize some of how even in nutrition you can see community, you can see the fact that there's resilience, but the resilience is linked to more than one element of nutrition. So that's one example of how we're looking at doing it.
Mhm. No, absolutely. So I would like to start with this quote that you send across. Resilience is a team sport. Can you explain that?
Yes. So that's exactly the same sort of concept of saying, well, if you think about it, um, if if you are going, so you've just been hiking for 2 days, your face is glowing, you're full of energy, etc., etc. Now, if I said to you, well, you know what, Andy, how about if you did an ultra marathon? You might go, "Ugh, all right then, but I don't think I can do it on my own." Because in order to for you to survive 2 days of hiking, you might be one or two of you going along. That's fine. But the longer you go, the further you go, the more you would need people with you. So anybody who's trying to achieve something like an ultra or an Ironman, or even just an ordinary, let's go back just to ordinary, I say ordinary marathon, that the runners, as they're running, there are people handing out water. When you're training, there's somebody riding alongside you on a bike to keep you motivated, to give you all the stats, somebody to bring fresh socks or whatever it is you need. The whole of that arena says to me, we need a community. This is a team. You might have one person as the point person, but there is a team involved. And that's what I mean by it in terms of resilience. You can see it's a team sport. It is never ever one person.
You can choose to be resilient, and you develop that. But for you to keep going and to improve, to develop and to keep, you need to build something around people that you trust, correct?
Correct. Yes. Trust is huge in that, because unless well, trust is built as you go along, for number one. So if you and I met um yesterday and you said, well, do you want to buy this phone from me? Say, I'm not sure whether or not I could trust you, because I don't know your history. I don't know where you've come from. I don't know where this phone has come from. So that we need to build trust. So we start with small um, pieces of trust, the transactional bits, and then trust is built. And that's how you start. But as you go along and you journey with other people and you co-journey together, the trust gets built stronger and stronger. I need you to check. There's nobody on my back, and I'll check for you as well. So
Mm.
trust is huge.
And the other thing is the importance of those your peer also will influence you
Yeah,
positively and negatively, right?
definitely.
So, for example, you know that good part of our resilience comes from the food we choose, the level of fitness, our sleeping patterns, and all the things around us. But also, it comes from people around us,
Yes,
whereas they are supporting our choices or they are against the choices that we make.
that's right. So I mean that saying has been around for a while. If you show me the five people you hang out with the most, or the books you read, I can predict your future.
Mm-hmm.
I can predict whether or not you will be um, going in an upward trajectory or downward trajectory. If you show me the five people around you, I can more or less guess what your weight is, based on the people you hang out with. So definitely, the community that you choose to belong to will help you move in a forward direction, or it will slow you down.
Because then you build that with the people around you, and then you support the changes that you want to process.
Yeah.
And in today's world, it's very important to choose wisely. I see something. I see there's something that is really affecting even members of my family, relatives, and the dividing people is, for example, I'll give an example, very practical example, the fear of COVID.
Right. Yeah.
And in that community, I mean, coming from South America, community is very important to us, right? And then you get those people who are so afraid that they don't step out of their houses and then do anything else. And those people who are not that afraid and they say, okay, let's just try stuff outside. And then within the family, within when you have within your relatives, and you start splitting that the fabric of that community, because you start even like, oh, you're not paying attention, or oh, you're too much relaxed, or you don't come close to me, or don't, that splits that fear, and the choices that you take splits communities, families, and I come from a very big family, a lot of people is a community, and I can see that sometimes how you see the world around you might split. And today, particularly because we're all facing this, or are we going to take the job or not? Or those decisions within community sometimes is split the
Yes.
community,
Yeah.
right? So
Definitely.
so that's why it's important. Resilience is so important that we ask the right questions, we sit and talk, we understand where people are coming from, and this is what I sometimes try to do. And both sides sometimes of the argument is sitting and trying to have to reason, because building something together is more important than my individual sometimes choices, in many ways. And I think a lot of countries that have this mindset develop in a different way. There was a very nice talk 3 years or 4 years ago. I don't remember. I watched Susan Pinkett talk about those. I think it's called blue ocean,
Blue zones.
blue zones. It
Yes.
comes, and then how people live longer because they manage to look after each other better,
Yes. Yeah.
and their life expectancy in those communities are much higher than in modern cities in other part of the world. That's an amazing talk. I think I'm going to put here in the link for people who want to watch that. But it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yep. Blue zones are a huge research topic developed some years back. So when it looked not just at your lifespan, but your health span. So that these people who have endured stuff together, I think Okinawa was one of the big ones where they lived through the world wars, and that bonding together, that holding people together, um, really strengthen not just one person or two people, but the whole community moved as one unit. And that is a fascinating thing when you look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So people might be some folks now listening or watching us will be thinking. Uh, so I'm guessing resilience has a lot to do with others. How do I fit into this context?
Yep, huge.
So you said another thing that you said is loneliness, because loneliness has grown massively in, I think, people in cities mostly. And I have some friends who could not see each other, but thank goodness things are getting better at the moment. Uh, Loneliness is the new smoking. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so that comes out of research by Public Health England, which now shows that the lack of social connections actually worsens your mental and physical health.
Okay.
In fact, they go as far to say that loneliness within a society increases the chances of prematurely dying by 26%.
Which agrees with the research Susan Pinker developed. Exactly, that is similar to what she said.
Yes, and if you think about it, if your odds of dying because of loneliness goes up by 26%, that's massive, absolutely huge.
Mhm.
And the thing is, as we know with COVID, what tends to happen is the loneliness. So loneliness and isolation go together, and that's funny. It's like loneliness and isolation are twins in this. So,
Mhm.
like you and I are talking at the moment, and we're actually doing it um, face to face, but not really face to face. And you're thinking, well, yeah, I'm not lonely because I'm with somebody, but the actual screen stops. It acts also as a barrier because I'm either so focused on what we're talking about that I forget that this is a bond that's been created.
Mhm.
So the screen acts as a barrier in the same way as it can act as a connector. But also, if you think about it, people who, and I think you work distance, so you're a distance worker. What it does is that it creates a bubble for you. If you're a parent with kids around you, it creates a bubble. If you think, oh yeah, well, when when previous to lockdown, and I know we're coming out of lockdown in some parts of the world, but some parts of the world, lockdown is still a reality. And so you don't go out as often, you don't travel to work, you can get up later, you don't have to get dressed, all of that good stuff. But at the same time, you there's a shortage of people to have fun with, to say, well, hey, did you see the football last night, the Euro 2020? Who won between it? And those sort of little interactions, those social interactions are huge. But
Absolutely,
but we're
absolutely
missing all of
massive.
that. Those things are missing in our lives.
Hmm. And that was like something incredible. I was listening to her. and she was saying how male, men who actually interact with others and even go play football or play card or something, they
Yep.
tend to live much longer than the ones that live a lonely, solitary life.
So are you saying I should start playing cards?
You should do something about that loneliness, Johnson. No, I think it's very important for us to understand that, and loneliness is an issue not only when it's not only being alone, as you said, right? You can
Yep.
be in the midst of quite a lot of people. You have your house full. You're looking after people. You have your kids running around, but you feel lonely inside.
Yes. Yep. And but it's not even so the feeling of loneliness is huge. And what Susan Pinkner is also linking to is a study which is one of the longest running studies. I think it was Harvard started it in the 1940s, and it looked at men and and followed them from being you know teenagers up to 70, 80, 90 years plus. And what they found was that the people who lived the longest and had the healthiest lives, the key turning points were important. And one of the key turning points, which is relevant for somebody like me, is they found that people who change careers or people who, I don't like the word, but retired, they, if you tracked the ones who built new communities around them were the ones who survived the most.
Mm.
So that's why I think I need new friends now that I've stopped the area that I was working in because of the exact same thing. I knew people who would play football. I knew people who you could talk to. I knew nurses, the
Mm.
midwives, the patients, the porters in hospitals. All of this formed my community. And then all of that disappeared the day you stopped.
Mm.
And so, in that way, I've realized in order to keep myself healthy, I need to find new communities around me.
Mm. I want to touch into another area that was happening today, and I think it can be improved if community comes together, which is the rise in domestic abuse and domestic violence. And unfortunately, this is something that
Yep.
I think myself it can only be solved if community can really cohesive build cohesive communities where we know more each other and we know more about what goes on inside each other's home. And I
Yep.
remember in the past growing up, we knew much more. And playing with the kids on the streets, we knew we go in someone else's house, open the door, go to the fridge and get a drink and come out. There was so much more openness than today where people live isolated. And unfortunately, the numbers are out there. Can you talk a little bit about that to us, Johnson?
Yeah, sure. So one of the problems, one of the really big problems that is sort of grown with the rise of COVID was exactly this, that wherever there's a chance of isolation, things happen in the dark. And by that I don't mean physically dark, but actually, yeah, there is a lot of abuse that goes on behind closed doors. Normally, if you get out and you go to work, or um, the other person who's the abuser goes to work, there is a separation that comes. But when you put somebody who is has a tendency to abuse and somebody who has a tendency to be a victim together for any length of time, it's like putting you in a pressure cooker, and so it gets worse. And there are a lot of people who've been in that situation. Also, you can't access social services. The health worker doesn't come around. You don't go and see a GP. All this sort of stuff just builds. So the kids don't go to school. So teachers don't pick up on the signals that this thing is going on. And we need a lot of help in that.
Mm.
And I think there are one or two people, I think you know some of them who have actually tried to help with it by highlighting the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we if you've seen that film, I think we want to try to bring Jack Stockley. He just had this new film coming out about exactly about that, right? So there are
Yep,
some people wanting to change the narrative and change the situation and bring that up and then saying, guys, we need to do something about this.
exactly. Yes. So Jack, I believe, produced I would call it a harrowing film. It's not something you'd want to sit and watch with your kids, but it actually does highlight what's going on behind closed doors.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I think that community life means also more openness and transparency and create a safe space where, and I'll say children, women, but it could be anybody, could cry out for help, and there
yeah,
will be help for them in local community, not central government, but local communities. And I think I'm an advocate of community empowerment. I think there's a lot today talking about empowering central government. For me, it should be the other way around. Empower more local communities to look
yep,
after themselves.
yep. Or actually to look after themselves, or even to police yourself, or to
Mm.
yeah,
And they're amazing. I mean, there are amazing cases out there, and I mean within indigenous groups. And I think also I'm saying I don't know much about the U.S., but surely in where we come from in South America, we see a lot of those within favelas, which I hate that name. I absolutely hate that name. In those communities where we see there is thriving. I mean, during COVID, I mean, a lot of the numbers that were sending out of Brazil, not correctly, many times, and I see people from there hearing and listening in Portuguese saying how they were coming together to beat, to change, because for some of those people, they just can't stay at home. You either go to work or you die of starvation.
yep,
There is no work remotely. There is no computer for them to type.
yep,
It's either they go to work and they face that or they die. And
yep,
we saw amazing cases of those communities that are thriving because they decide to come together and become resilient and bounce back and find solutions. And I think that those are examples, and I think probably everywhere in the world, you probably can hear about good examples of that. So
definitely.
you say something, the answer lies in communities. I mean, we're trying to build a community here, MLC, and I'm sure we're friends with other people who are building their communities and other things. But can you explain a little bit what you mean by the answer lies in communities?
Well, let me give take it back to my favorite topic, food. So if you look at it and somebody says to you, you realize that you have a community of bugs living inside of you called your microbiome. I said, yeah. So if
And they are
you
the large majority. We are
that
losing. We are losing this battle, right?
exactly,
It's
yeah.
only one of us against millions of them.
There's not millions, there's trillions
Trillions. Yes, I
of
think. I mean, was that the fiber? No, what's the name of that book?
fiber fueled.
The fiber. Chapter 6, Johnson. I'm halfway there. I haven't
Yeah,
finished yet, but that's amazing. And he talks about that, right? About even the
yeah,
comparison between our body and the stars in the galaxy or something like that.
correct. Yes, fiber fueled for anybody listening is a fantastic
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
explanation of how.
By the way, let me say this. I'm gonna come out in the open. There is a whole chapter. I think it's chapter 6, where I'm almost finishing up. It talks about fermented food, and I'm
Yes.
very proud of myself. I live in Austria, but I that is not my thing. But I've made my first sauerkraut,
Wow.
and I'm
Yes.
so proud of myself. It's simple, but and I think fermented food, for example, millions, our our microbiome,
Hmm.
it feeds from it, and it's so healthy. and
Yes.
and and thousands and thousands of years ago, as an ancestors would be feeding from it and
Yep.
living healthy lifestyle. But anyway, let's go back to community.
So the community within you um, is important. So we acknowledge that, the microbiome is responsible for things like your immune system, stuff like your your health in terms of your the the sorry, it's gone. The hormones,
Mhm.
serotonin and dopamine, are produced mainly in your gut.
Mhm.
These are the stuff that if your serotonin is higher,
Mhm.
it acts as an anti-inflammatory. If your serotonin is high, it decreases the amount of cortisol in your body, which is the stress bit of it. So when you are less stressed, guess what? You can sleep better. So that's why it's important. So then you try and figure out, so how do I keep these guys happy? And you say, well, it depends on what you eat. So you say, good, let's, I say to you, well, keep eating the fruit and veg, keep eating the fiber. Say, fine, no problem. And somebody comes along and says, hey, guess what, Andy? Do you know what? I believe blueberries are the superfood. Everybody should be eating blueberries. Or somebody says, you know what? No, no, forget blueberries. Kale is king. And so there'll be a bunch of people who are saying, yep, we're the kale people, I'm the blueberry people. And somebody said, well, no, no, I'm the strawberry people, I'm the spinach people, I'm whatever it is. And we look at it and we take, yes. So we pick one food group and you raise it to the level at which you think that's the superfood. And I'm not against superfood, but the point is that we need a variety of food to supply the needs of the variety of the community that's inside of us. So rather than
So the
talk about,
secret is variety.
the secret is diversity, it's variety.
Mhm.
If you want to keep the guys inside you happy, then you need to make sure that you feed them the good stuff. But the problem is they they don't just like one type of food because we actually don't know. There's like you say, there's trillions of them inside of you.
Mhm.
Which diet are you going to feed them on? The blueberry diet, the strawberry diet, the kale diet, the Atkins diet, the paleo diet, the gluten-free diet, the keto diet. All of this makes no sense in terms of your microbiome. If you're going to feed the community inside of you, you need to feed them diverse stuff.
Diversity. Diversity. Yeah, I think diversity is really key, and understanding how you bring it together, right? The
Correct.
right time, the right amount, the right
Exactly.
combination,
Yep.
and how you build that. There's something you mentioned that I want to bring it up because I was like, okay, so how does it work? You talk about real communities, but you also talk about virtual communities. And I found really interesting that you said something like you go into the gym and those people that you have nothing to do with becomes your community. Can you explain a little bit to us?
Sure. So as we know, we talk in MLC about change and transition and momentum and all that sort of stuff. And the one piece that is true for anybody trying to make a big change is you need some support. Say resilience is a team sport. So is change. So I remember when I went started to go to the gym um, back in the BC before COVID, 2018. I went by myself. I had nobody to go to with. But over time, over a few weeks, I started to notice some people around me. That there was the guy in his string vest who was kind of like the same age. He'd be pulling the same kind of resistance. You know, there was a woman who I looked at her one day and I thought, well, I like that. There she is on the treadmill. She's reading a book. So, I could do that. Could be a little bit dangerous reading a book on a treadmill. But hey, if one person could do it, it inspires you to try it yourself. The only problem with that woman is one day I happened to be standing next to her, and I looked at her sideways on, and I thought, I'm not doing that, because I realized why she was there reading a book on the treadmill. She was actually pregnant. I thought, no, I'm not going as far as that in terms of building community. Or the other example I had was that there was three women who were there, and they would come regularly. They're all past 70, and they'd be all talking to each other, and they'd go on three treadmills side by side, or they'd go on three bikes side by side, and they brought their own community with them. But for me, I had all of these people as my virtual community. These were the people who were not perfect specimens. There weren't the guys who were, you know, 10, 15 years younger than me, and they all used to huddle in the weight section. But these were people that I could relate to. And so that was what I call my virtual community in that space.
So you felt part, because by going back to the gym and by being that time, being with them exactly in the same time, most of the times you felt that you were connected with them
Correct.
in a certain way
Correct. That bond that um, inspired me
to keep going.
to keep going. And I think the flip side of this is I would hope that by somebody who looks like me in that gym, I would be able to inspire somebody else,
Mm,
because you have actually no idea who's looking at you in that gym.
mm,
And so
absolutely right.
the more you keep going and doing what you do, they were inspiring me by their coming, week after week, week after week, and I'm thinking, hey, you know what? These guys are fantastic.
No,
And
absolutely. I think there is such a
yeah,
beautiful example there, but it's very important lesson to all of us that either it's a real community, it's those people that live on your street or around. I mean,
mm,
here where we are, we have those people that meet regularly too, and they have their own community, or even a virtual community, people that we relate to, but it makes you keep coming back to it. The key is exactly the same, that helps you to build resilience
correct, correct.
in a way that being isolated, you'll be super hard.
And that's why even as you walk along your own neighborhood, and you keep seeing the same people, and maybe you smile at them one day, or you just say hello. Some If you can break the ice by just smiling or saying, wow, that's a nice garden you've got there, or whatever, it makes a difference. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think I can say that I can relate to that because I normally hike with my partner, and she's Austrian. And when we go up and hike, that those people I've never met and probably never met before, never will never meet before, becomes part of that community of people who loves nature and mountains.
Yep.
And they smile as they pass, and they say those German words, but they normally say, and then you can feel their radiance, and that really pushes you to go further and become happier, and that builds that resilience inside of you,
Correct.
and suddenly say, wow, these people are amazing, even though I might not never see them. And today we met and bumped with so many of them, and we laughed, and sometimes we sit in a hut, and then we exchange looks, and then we say hi or things like that, and exchange a few words. But that community, that of mountain lovers,
Mm,
even though it's not officially formed, and we meet regularly, it becomes something that gives you that strength that you need to go through the week.
Yes.
It's probably more or less what you're saying about your virtual community in the gym, right?
Yes. So for you, the mountain might be your oasis, your community oasis. So the gym would have been mine. So you go in, you give something, you get something back, and then it keeps you going for the rest of the week when you're not there.
Mm. So let's talk about resilience and in nature, resilient communities in nature. So you bring an example a little bit about. By the way, are you also reading that book, The Hidden Life of Trees?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I didn't know they had started. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm almost finishing that. It's absolutely. I'll never look at it. I'll never look at a tree in the same way.
So
Right now, I caught myself talking to them. My partner thinks I'm absolutely crazy. Well, crazy, but anyways.
no, so
I speak to the linden tree here at the back, and absolutely, the way he talks about trees, it transformed the science of trees into poetry for me.
yes.
So tell me a little bit about your experience around that. Why is that to do with building resilience or resilient communities?
So when we think of trees, you can either think of a tree or you could think of a forest. And there's a big difference. A single tree on its own will not be able to withstand drought. A single tree on its own is not able to withstand wind in the same way that a group of trees does. And over the years, what Peter Wolleben, who's written the book called The Hidden Life of Trees, is now starting to show the rest of us is how these trees build their own community. How is it they talk to each other? How is it they make a difference in the lives of their neighbors? So he gives a few examples which I've been looking at. One of which is he says, in certain parts of the world, there are giraffes that come along and eat the leaves of the acacia trees. And if the giraffes strip one tree of all its leaves, guess what happens to that tree?
It dies.
It dies. So the tree turns out and it gets bitten by a giraffe and it says, "Oh, we're under attack." So it releases a gas, a nasty gas that the giraffes don't like. You could call it a tree fart if you want. So the giraffe looks at the tree and I can't stand that. So you know what? I'll move next door because this thing is awful. But what happens is that it's not just that the tree gives off a gas that the giraffe can sort of smell, but the neighbors, the trees next door, also get a sense of this chemical smell, and they start to produce their own sort of gas,
Mhm.
so that by one tree being attacked, the other tree
It triggers.
it triggers exactly, and so the poor giraffe has to move further and further away from these groups of trees, or it has to go upwind where the tree can't smell or sense what's going on. So that sort of um, protective element of where one person or one tree in a community gets attacked, and it helps the others. It
Mhm.
also, I mean, you see it as well with caterpillars that attack birch trees, where there's a community behavior that goes on. So let's imagine a caterpillar comes out and bites a leaf on a birch tree. The birch tree then releases a chemical that spreads to its own leaves, and the caterpillar says, "This is disgusting. I can't keep eating this." So after about an hour or so, you'd find that the caterpillar has to abandon that tree. So if you ever go and look in the forest or you go in your garden and check, you will never see a tree where all the leaves are stripped. for exactly that reason, that the tree gives out a defense mechanism, and it affects its own leaves and it affects the leaves of the trees around them.
Absolutely.
So it's that old sort of like the three musketeers, one for all and all for one.
Mm. Mm. And they really heard around their own communities. They even sometimes in the book you see them fighting other trees.
Yeah.
They even have that tribal thing where they protect each other, right? And then they create that community around them.
Yep.
No, absolutely, I think it's so key. There's so much we can learn about community and resilience, looking at the life of trees. Absolutely.
Yep.
I would love to carry on. I would suggest for us to split and talk about more in the next part. I want to look at the resilience in communities during, let's say, tragedies, and like rebuilding communities, rebuilding out of difficult situations. There is so much more for us to draw from in terms of the times of difficulty and tragedies, and looking at how communities are building again. But there is something else you want to explore, which is there is more than one you. I want to give a lot of time for you to talk about that and open why you're saying there is more than one you. It's almost like we are a community of one individual. That's
Yep.
very fascinating, and I would like to give more time for us to discuss that in part two of this episode.
We look forward to that.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Thank you very much, Johnson. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention. Please keep sharing the episodes with other people. Help us to build a community. MLC is here for you, and we'd love to hear from you also. Thank you very much. We will be together soon. Thank you, Johnson.
You're welcome. Speak soon.
Speak soon.